Do you see my slides?
Yes.
So today is the workshop 3, and today we are going to do web app hosting in the cloud and learn about object storage and content delivery networks. So from last week, we forgot to just go through when we build the RDS instance, RDS cluster. We forgot to like go through these uh, concepts like DB snapshots and restore. So I'm going to first go through that. So what is a snapshot and what is a restore means? It's a way that you can back up your database and then create a new database out of that backup. So these are important, especially in disaster recovery situations where for whatever reason your database gets uh, damaged, or maybe it undergoes some failure, maybe natural disaster or whatever. So you need to have a, you can, if you have the most recent backup or a snapshot, you can easily use that to create a new database and to continue your workload, handle the workload by pointing to the new database. So it's as a disaster recovery feature and also as a rollback step for failed deployments. What I mean by that is, as we know, as software engineers, we usually do like continuous development, continuous integration, where you continuously do improvements to your code, to your application. You introduce a new feature, you fix a bug or whatever, and when you fix those issues, when you do those improvements, you run what you call a pipeline or a deployment to push those updates to your production application. But sometimes things don't go as planned, and sometimes you have to revert back to the older version of your application. So in such scenarios, it's good if you have a backup taken just before that new improvement, so that in case your deployment fails, you can easily take the database back to the state it, it was before the deployment. So as a rollback step also, these DB snapshots and restore, these features become important. So let's see how we can do that in a cloud database. So most of these cloud databases, they support uh, these are database recovery and snapshot features. Database snapshot and restore feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the RDS console here. I'm already logged in using my IAM user. So I go there. Oh, I need to log in again. My MFA. So we go to DB instances, and this is, so I forgot to mention you last week. It's good if you can shut down your databases. Like what you can do is you can once your RDS instance is up and available in the available state, you are incurring cost. But as for the first year, you get some free tier, and after the free tier expires, so like there is a limited number of hours, that is allocated for the free tier. So after those hours have passed, then you will be incurring costs. So it's good after you done your application, because we are not running any production things, we are just learning. So when you are done with your work or the development work, you can select your database here and go, and you can click here stop temporarily. So it will say, so how RDS works is like after 7 days it will automatically start. uh, so I say I acknowledge that it starts after 7 days. If not, if you want to stop the database permanently, what you can do, you can you have option here. I'm going to do that now. So I'll first start the database. I stop the previous database I created, so I'm going to start that. It will take some time for that to start. When it has started, not sure. See, or maybe not. I still, while it's starting, I can still take a snapshot. So it just want me to give a name for the snapshot. So usually we want to know when the snapshot was taken. So we usually say like put the date, June 21st. One snapshot. Okay. So now, oh, it's currently. So I have to wait until it starts. Uh, then we should be good to take the snapshot. See. So until it starts, I'm going to move to the other topic that I wanted to discuss from last week. So with regard to IAM, we discussed some concepts related to IAM like users, roles, trust relationships, groups, how they work, and how we can access the console using either the how we can access the cloud services either using the console, AWS CLI, or the program language specific SDKs. So one thing I forgot to mention there was this principle of least privilege. So what this says is, if you want to give a particular permission to a user, you should not give that person just more than, not more than what he needs. For instance, if somebody wants to do like read some objects in those S3, you just need to give him the permissions to read that particular object, not to list the entire bucket or to see the contents of a particular prefix, not any of that, but you grant access only to the only to that particular object. For instance, how we can control that is sometimes in the program itself, you can say when you want to do some action, you allow that user to assume a particular role and then do whatever the actions you want to do with that user. And then you uh, uh, write a command to remove that particular role from that user. So likewise, you are giving certain permission to a user only for the particular object and only for that particular time that he needs access to. You don't give anything more than that. So that is the idea of least privilege, because if somebody wants just read access and if you give write access and list access, all those additional permissions, you cannot control. Like if there is an issue, if you find some items are missing, some database records have been deleted, you don't know, it's so hard to troubleshoot and debug where things went wrong. You don't know whether it was something wrong with the application or it was some outside external party trying to including into your system. You cannot get all you can. It's so hard to troubleshoot the root cause if you don't follow this principle. So it's the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Let's see if we have the database up now. Still starting, okay. So we can move to today's content. I will move on to what we are going to do today, and then So, or what I'm thinking is uh, just to go through what we did last week. Uh, so this is what we did last time. Like we no, this is not. So I'll just show you in the workbench what we did because I was rushing that day and in case you had issues following. So this was the database that we were trying to connect to through the Bastion. So I'm going to edit this connection because it's still starting. It says it cannot connect. Or maybe I want to connect to my VPN too because my Bastion can be accessed only through my Office VPN. So I need that too. I need to have connection to the VPN now. So what just want to emphasize what we did here. So this was the public IP address of our Bastion because for the safety purposes, we don't directly connect to the database. We usually connect through a Bastion. So the SSH host name is the Bastion host IP address. Or if you have a like a DNS, generally Bastions in the public subnet, they get a DNS name as well. I'll show you what that is. So this project Bastion. So these instances also you can stop after you done your learning and all. So what you just need to do is you click on the check on the instance here and go to instance state and now I have stopped this one, so I can either start or terminate. But unlike the RDS where they automatically start it after 7 days, in EC2 instances you can stop them as long as you want. But the thing is, for these bastions, they have what you call the public IP. So public IPs, if they have something called elastic IP, let's see if it has an elastic IP. So it has this ENI network interface card. This is called elastic network interface. So if they have that elastic network interface, and if you keep the instance stop without running, they are going to incur a cost. If you stop a instance with a elastic IP, if you stop that, you will be incurring a cost every hour. But as long as you run, you don't incur cost for the elastic IP, but they will charge you for the hourly rate for that EC2 instance. But since you are on the free tier for the first year, you should be good with that for a year. I mean, you won't incur if you select a free tier instance like the T2 Micro. So let's get this one started first. So we can first connect to the Bastion and then to the database. So EC2s, they start pretty fast, unlike the RDS. I'm not sharing my video, right? Yeah, I forgot to share that. Okay. So Bastion is up and running, and now we are going to see if the RDS is also available. So now we can take the snapshot. Now it will show here. So it says status is snapshot is being created. It shows progress also here. Now, since this is a very small database, I think it should be snapshot should be available pretty soon. Still, it's taking time. Let's give that time to do the snapshot and move to the workbench to see. So this was the public IP address of our Bastion, and this is the SSH username is the username that we use SSH into the Bastion, and then this was the PEM file SSH key file that we used to connect, and This is the RDS endpoint. So that is this endpoint. That is the RDS endpoint. That is like the database host in general terms. And then MySQL, so you have to use the 3306, and if it is Postgre, you will use something like 1.5. I don't remember the PostgreSQL port, but something around 1.5 or 2 or something. Then this is the username that we gave when we were creating the RDS, and uh, you go here and do the test connection with the password you provided at the database creation. So let's see, it should connect now. Or maybe, yeah, it fails to connect because the EC2 instance, when I start the Bastion, like after when I stop and start the Bastion, it usually gets a new public IP. So this is the new public IP, and I'll need to go and enter it here because you see the older one was, this is the older one, and this is the new one. You can see the difference, right? So when I stop the instance, it removes its public IP, and when I start it, it gets a new public IP. So let's try with this IP. Okay. It usually asks that when we initially connect. So I'm asked to enter that password. Okay. So now I'm connected. So you realize how we can troubleshoot issues with the connection to the database. Like mostly it's this one, or sometimes for whatever reason, for cost saving, you have shut down the database. Then also you cannot connect, so you'll have to go and restart the database. Sometimes your Bastion may have stopped. You have to go and start that. Or likewise, or sometimes you may change the master root password. That might also be an issue. So those are the things that usually come up with databases, and you will have to troubleshoot. So we are done with that. So before anything, what I want to do now for today's lesson, what I want, let's see if the snapshot is ready. If it's ready, we can snapshots. You can access snapshots from here. See if it's ready. Yeah, snapshot is available. Now, if you want to, I'm not going to do that, but if you want to create another database from the snapshot, you just go here and click on restore snapshot, and then you can specify the name and everything, what database size you want, all that here. All this fire class. If you want to go for a bigger instance class, you can specify all of that. And I don't think there is a way to specify the root password, because when you replicate that root password that you use for the snapshot database, that will all be copied to the new database. So there is nowhere you can specify the uh, root password or super user password for the database. So that is how you can do the restore. And let's move on to today's things. So first of all I want to do, so what we are going to do is we are going to host a PHP application, and we will be accessing the database. So we'll first go and create a table, or initially a schema, and then we create a table just with few rows. And then we are going to save some objects in an object storage, that is S3. So we'll create a bucket and put some objects there. And then through the application, we are going to display that on a web page, PHP web page, table format. We can display the records from the database along with the photos from the object storage. So we'll do that. And when I want to do some changes to what I did last time. So I'll inform that when I'm at that stage. So let's get started with the database creation and the table creation. So here now we are in this project one database. Now if you go here, you see only one schema. So this is like initial schema that RDS creates for us, maybe some my initial uh, table, but we will create a new schema for our project. So you can have any name. I'm going to use this sample as the schema name, and then I'm going to create a table here with just 3 or 4 columns. So now I have the sample schema here. So there aren't any tables, so I'm going to create a table also. So it's a very small one. It's a users table. So I put here ID, it's an int. Name, last name, and uh, image. So what I mean by image is we are not going to store the image itself here, but a path to the image in our object storage. So we'll just store the path here, and then we can refer it through the application to use the object storage and display the image there. So this is the basic table we want. I'm going to apply. So it will create the table for me. And next I'm going to put some records into this table. So what I'm going to do, so I can put few words here. So I'm a good fan of basketball, so I'm just going to use some players names here. So this is what I'm going to do. You like 3 rows is enough. Okay. So we have 3 rows added, and I'm going to apply. So this insert commands will be executed. Okay, now we have the table. Okay. Then now the database is ready, and now we need to go to the object storage. So let's move on to our database really quick, like the presentation. So this is what we are going to do. So we are going to have a web server running in the public subnet. So anybody from the internet can access our web server, get the content. So in the web server, we'll be running the PHP application, and this PHP application will have access to the RDS database as well as to the S3 bucket. So today we are not going to implement the DynamoDB table, but maybe I'll do that in the next workshop. But for that, today we'll be uh, creating the S3 bucket and access the objects. So I'm going to create a new webs. Okay, first of all, I will create the bucket, S3 bucket here. So I go to the S3. So in order to store your objects, you need to first have a like now for a hard for if you want to save a file, you need to initially have a hard disk or something. So this bucket serves as like the hard disk, and then in the hard disk you can have what you call and the disks and all those partitions and everything. So similarly, a bucket can have multiple prefixes inside that, similar to folders you have in your hard disk. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a bucket. So I suggest you to this bucket names. One thing I wanted to mention, bucket names have to be unique across the entire AWS infrastructure. So you realize here, this S3 now, when we were in EC2 console, we had a region selected here like US East. So EC2, if you go to RDS, so all these have region specific things. They are like region specific services, RDS, EC2 and everything. But S3, when I move to S3 console, I become global. So S3 is a global service. So your bucket names that you create, they have to be bucket names, have to be unique. So if somebody has taken this bucket name, nobody had taken that, so I could take that. If so, common names like test, production, all those common bucket names are already gone. So you have to have some uh, come up with a name that is unique, maybe with your date of birth and some random digits at the end. So I'm going to use something like this. And they don't allow uppercase things, uppercase letters in the bucket name. So here you can specify a region where this bucket will be created, but buckets are generally considered as global. So they are not region specific. This means this bucket is mainly created in the UST1 region, though it can be accessed from anywhere in the world. So in case so anything fails, like in in case something happens in UST East 1, there is a slight risk of losing your objects, but they have AWS is they are so uh, advanced, and they are so reliable. They give you like 9 nines of availability for your objects, so they guarantee like there is very less chance to lose an object when it is stored in S3. So 99 point, then 7 nines. That is what is meant by 9 nines availability. So you can realize how small probability is there to lose an object if it is stored in S3. So that means definitely they have replicated the objects in these buckets. So in case one thing fails, they can easily take it from another place and replace. That is how they ensure that much availability. So region, that's good. We just block all public access for now. And versioning we don't want. If you want, like in production systems, we usually have versioning, and we want this server-side encryption, that is to save. So if somebody else gets access to your objects, they cannot view that. They are unreadable as long as they are encrypted. So that's for security purposes. And so bucket key is the key that you use to encrypt these objects. And one thing I wanted to show you here now, I think it's in the slides. So this S3 is basically an object storage, and it's immutable. Immutable means unlike a file, like in JIT, when you do some changes to a file, you can append new lines, you can remove current lines in the file. But what is mean by immutable is there is no way you can do any incremental things to a S3 object. You have to put the entire object as a new object. That is the idea of immutable. So that is how the versioning also works. So if you have a version 1 of a particular file, then you put the version 2, it does not compare what are the lines removed, what are the lines added like that. It just take the new entire file and put that as the version 2. So that is how the object storage work. If you want to track the changes and everything, S3 is not the storage for that. There are other file storage or hierarchical storages that can do that. So you should consider those options. But S3 is mainly for object storage, immutable items. And then you mainly deal with a bucket, and then you encrypt the bucket with keys. So the content of the bucket is safe, and it is not a hierarchical file structure. Even though you have something like a folder in the buckets, like show you, uh, you can have, let me, so this block called public access, we are marking that uh, because for the web application, we can do it in two ways. One is to allow public access. So if you want your application to directly allow objects from the S3, you have to allow public access. That is one way to access objects from S3 to your website, but it's not safe to give public access to a bucket. So because of that, we are going to use something called Cloud Delivery Networks or CDNs. So we try to uh, offer, or we try to serve our objects through this cloud delivery network. So it's safe and we don't have to give public access to the bucket, but the cloud delivery network will have access to the bucket. And that's how we are going to implement. So I'm blocking the public access now, but if you want, you can directly give the public access, like removing this block, and then serve content directly from the S3 also. I'll show you what changes you would need if you want to do that. And that is how I did this in the previous workshop. But now I have realized it's and I wanted to do some improvements to every workshop series. So I thought I will introduce these cloud delivery networks and let you guys touch on that service as well. So bucket is being created. Okay, it's ready. And what I mean by the folder structure is you can specify a folder here. So it appears as a folder, but it actually like uh, is not like uh, now you cannot access this one directly. Like you cannot access a folder in S3. It's always an object. So if you have something in these files, uh, you call this a prefix. In this files prefix, if you have an object, you can access that through console and through the SDKs. But prefixes, they don't make much sense in the object storage. They are just a way to arrange your objects, but not a significant I mean structure when it come like in contrast with the folders that you have in your hard disk. So I'm not going to use the prefixes. I'll just create three objects. I'm going to upload three objects here. Uh, so if you can download just three JPEG images and upload them here, that should do. I have three images I have downloaded already, and I have renamed them as 1, 2, and 3.jpg because those are the values that we provided to the image column in our database. So it's easy to refer them with the same name. So they are uploaded here. Right. Okay. Next, I'm going to now I told you. Okay, 140 already. Yeah. I told you I'm going to do it through the CDN, the CloudFront, the CDN service. Let's see. Okay, go ahead and do that first, and then we'll move to the CloudFront. We'll move to the block allowing public access. If needed, we'll move on to that later. So next I want to do is the CloudFront thing. So CloudFront is the AWS content delivery service. It is also another global service. So if you go to content CloudFront, I guess maybe not. Let's see what's the region it's being directed to. Maybe it's global. I'm not really sure. And one other thing I wanted to show you. IAM, that is the Identity Access and Management Service. It's also a global service. So the users you create in your account, they are accessible all around the world, not just from the US East one, no US West one, no whatever. So let's go and see the. It's a bit slow. Okay. So I'm going to go to IAM service just to show you that. Yeah, it doesn't even show me the. Yeah, it doesn't show me the. Usually it should show here like the global. It's not showing me that. That's okay. So IAM is also a global service for your information. So what that means is it doesn't mean that you cannot control users doing things in each region. You can do that. Now, for instance, if you want your IAM users, a particular user can only handle EC2 instances in US East 1, you can control that always, but the user accounts you create, they are global. They can be accessed from any region in the AWS infrastructure. So this is the CloudFront screen, CloudFront homepage. Sometimes if you don't have any distributions, you will get a different screen, but there will be a button to go to create distribution. So you go there, and first of all, you need to create a distribution for this S3 bucket, and then you generate some URL that you can use in your application to access this bucket. So here, origin, what is the origin for the CDN? So you can have multiple origins. Now, the only origin we have are the S3, and this is the new bucket that I created today. So I'm going to select that one as the origin, and path. I mean, if I have a if I want this distribution to access objects only in a particular prefix, like in the files prefix, I can add that one here like this, but I don't want to do that. I uploaded my files in the root bucket. So then it's the root folder that I'm accessing with this distribution. So I leave it that way. And origin access, we say the origin, that S3 bucket is the origin. So how are we going to access the origin? We want to go to this legacy access identities and create new origin access identity for this bucket. So origin access identity, they are mainly like to restrict. Now the bucket can only be accessed through this CloudFront distribution. So to do that, we have to make this distribution like a user. That is the idea of origin access identity. So this distribution itself becomes becomes a user. That is what we are going to do with this create new OAI. So enter a new name. So this is the OAI name. It's the like there's 3 endpoint here. So it's created. And now I want to update the bucket policy. So only this origin access identity can access the bucket. Yes, update the bucket policy. So otherwise we'll have to go to the bucket and update its permission, but now it's going to do that for us. Let's see how that happens. And now I'll show you. Now this is the bucket we created, and in the permissions, we don't have anything, right? Our bucket policy is empty. But after we run this, create this distribution, you will have some permissions there. Bucket policy will be updated that granting access only to this origin access identity. So all these others I'm going to keep as default. Okay, I don't want to secure because we are not doing any production stuff. Yeah, we can leave all these things default and create the distribution. So just to move on to the, until now, it will show like it's being, distribution is being created. Yeah, it's being deployed, currently being deployed. So we'll just touch up on some theories on the CloudFront, just few. So CloudFront is AWS's content delivery network. And the main advantage of that is you can cache content at edge locations, which are much closer to the users. So I think, as I mentioned you on the maybe the last workshop, if you are playing, if a video is hosted in the US East region and you have users accessing that from an Asian country, they won't have to go through the entire AWS network to come to US East 1 to fetch that video. When one or few people watch that video, they are going to cache that in one of the edge locations in the Asian region. So the users then can easily access it faster with better performance and speed. So that's the main, that was the original purpose of the CloudFront, but now they have improved the service where there is something called Lambda at edge. So at edge locations, they are capable of executing certain computing work also at the edge locations, but mainly the CloudFront, it's the content delivery service for the AWS. Yeah. So we'll go to the, I think the, it should be ready now, still not. Okay. So until then, until the distribution is ready, what we are going to do, we are going to start our web server. So I'm going to launch a new instance, the web server, and it will be hosted in the public subnet because then only we can access it through the internet. And let's see. And before that, actually, I want to do a few things. So it was in the slides. Okay, so for the web server, we need to have a firewall, right? Based on your now, we will be accessing this web server from the internet. So can you guys answer my question? What are the firewall rules that we need to implement? And we need to access it from our local machine also, like the Bastion. So can you guys name few firewall rules we need to have in place for the security group or the firewall? You can unmute yourself and give an answer if you want to, or I can go ahead. Okay, so what I told you, we want to be able to connect to this web server from our VPN. So we need to have a firewall rule that is similar to the Bastion. So maybe open port 22 and allow my public IP, the VPN IP. And then I want to have the internet, allow the entire internet on port 80 to access this server. And then I need to do another change on the database end because currently the database is allowed to uh, database currently allows only the Bastion security group on port 3306, the MySQL port. But now we are going to create a new security group for the web server. We need to allow that security group also on port 3306. So we need to create one security group new and one update to the database security group. Let's see. So we'll start with the security groups first. To create one. I put web server security group. So I want to be in the project VPC. So there you go. Two rules I want. SSH, that is port 22. And my IP, right? And then I want to have port 80. That is HTTP. Allow all internet, anyway IP4. So this is the internet side. This is my private IP, my public IP. So this is all I want. And outbound, we have to allow all traffic to the internet. And that's all. Create the security group and we'll go to the database security group and update its rules also. And then we should be good to host the database, host the application. So anything. Okay. Next, I'm going to sorry. Sorry. Do you guys hear me clearly or there is a lot of background noise?
I'm here. No problem.
Okay. Yeah, because my neighbor started the cutting the lawn, so there is a lot of noise. So sorry about it. I hope I can record this well though. Okay, so we'll go to the security group of the database and soon change that. And then say project DB security group. I mean, it's good to name that, right? Project DB security group. So it's easy to find it here. So inbound rules. It currently allows only this is our Bastion security group, and I want to allow the my web server security group. Web server security group. Okay. So the web server can access the database to get those records to display on the web page. Okay. Security groups are ready, objects are ready, database is ready. Now we got to set up the PHP application. No, we have to first create the instance, EC2 instance for the web server, and then we can SSH and do the application setup. Oops. Okay. So project web server. So I'm going to use the Amazon Linux 2023 AMI. So T2 micro, the same feature instance, and I don't want to create another same key pair. So I'm going to use the older one that I use for the Bastion test 2 key pair. So I can use its PEM file to connect to this instance. And this one, this is the default VPC. I think it's there. We'll go and change the network to use the project VPC. It's project VPC. And in that, whatever so this is a private subnet selected, but we want to host this in a public subnet. We'll just take one of the public subnets. And we need to have a public IP for this instance. Otherwise, we can't connect it from the internet. And we already created a security group, so we're going to select that one here. Select existing security group and put web server security group. And the rest I'm going to leave as default and launch the instance. Okay, now the instance will be coming up, and so I can get this one's public IP to connect to SSH into that first, and then we can set up the application. Yeah. So the same way that we create connected to the Bastion, SSH EC2 user at public IP, then we specify the location of the PEM file. Now we are in our web server instance. So what we need to do, we have to install the HTTP server on that. So I have some commands that you need to execute here. I will share that with you with the video. Then first of all, so all these have to execute as sudo super user. This is the first one. I'll share this along with the video, these files, so you can execute each of these lines. So this is just okay. So because we just created the instance, all the libraries are updated. Nothing needs to do. Next, we install the PHP and HTTP servers here. So now, before we start this HTTPD start means you start the server. Before we do that, we need to put our files, website files, in this server. So generally, when the HTTPD server is installed, your website location is created here in cd /www/html. So whatever you put here, like index.php file, index.html, that will be displayed as the website when this IP address is accessed. So for now here, I am going to put the index.php file. So I'm going to use this editor called vi. And I would, yeah, I'll use the other one. I mean, it's more friendly for the beginners. So there is, let's see if it is here, nano index.php. Okay, so I'm going to use this nano editor because there are some options to, otherwise you'll have to remember the keys that to press to save, to exit the terminal and all. So here I'm going to paste this file. I will share all these files with you. Okay. So this entire file going to copy and paste in that nano editor. Like Control C and Control V, they are common everywhere. So here, yeah. Now one change you need to do here is, it's a table thing, as you can see. ID, first name, last name, image, and I am querying the users table here and fetching those values. Now here, the change you need to do is for the image src, you have to specify, if you use it this way, you have to put your bucket name here after you make the bucket public. But if not, I'm going to put here the distribution name, the URL of the CloudFront distribution. So it will be accessed via the distribution. So it says deployed. And now if we refresh the bucket, what I told you, bucket permission will be updated, granting access only to that origin access identity. Sorry, I need to between distance. Give me 1 second. I'm not sure whether it's an issue with my network or the machine. So you see here, now we have a bucket policy here. So it says this S3 get object permission on this buckets objects. So these buckets, all the objects is access is given only to the CloudFront user. This CloudFront origin access identity. Only this user, only this origin access identity can access this bucket. Nobody else can access this. So that is how the permissions have changed. So what I want is this new distributions distribution domain name. I'm going to copy that and paste that in the code. So here, just before this query data 3, I'm going to paste it. So it will be accessed through the CloudFront distribution, and then the objects will be read. So this is all I want. So I'm going to use the control or the write out option. File name to write index.php. Oh, sorry. So I should have used sudo nano here. I forgot to do that. I'm going to copy this one first. No. 1 second. I'm going to exit first and then do it again with sudo nano. Because this var www HTML file is the very restricted area, and not every user can do that. So, copy that thing first. I would exit this and create a new one. That would be much easier. This one here. Just it. Okay, this is good. And I'll have to update the distribution and here. Copy it again. Okay. So I'm going to write out first. And now exit. Okay. Now the index.php is ready. But if you are familiar with some PHP, now we are using a dbinfo.php file here in the include folder. So we have to go and create that one too. So I'm going to create this include folder here. And then I'm going to go into that folder and then I'm going to use the info.php. So here also I'm sharing a file with you that you will need to paste, copy and paste. So it just specifies your database credentials. And you will have to replace your RDSDB instance endpoint, your password, database name and username, all those credentials you'll have to replace with whatever you entered. So what is RDSDB endpoint? I'm going to get that from my RDS console. So I'll go to this one here. Yeah. So this database, this is the endpoint I want. I'm going to paste that here. And the database name I created was sample, that is correct. And the DB username, I'm going to put admin. And I'm going to take this to the other screen and put the password, and then I'm going to do write out and exit. So my password is not recorded here. Okay, now that file is also saved, and come back here. Okay, now everything is ready, and we'll see. We can now execute the rest of the commands from this user data file. Like we can start the server with this command, and we need to enable also, that is something in Linux. Okay, now let's see if we can access the web server from the public IP. So this is our web server. Let's see. Okay, yeah, seems like it's working. So we are reading records from the, so we are reading records from the database, and we are reading these images from the CloudFront distribution. So I guess we are all good with what we wanted to achieve today. So I'm going to, with the recording, I will put a link to the files you will need. And yeah, that's all I was planning to do for today. Do you guys have any questions? If so, I can wait, or we can drop. Yeah, I think that's all I have to present. If you guys have any question, stay and you can ask, or I will, once the recording is done, I will share that with you. And I forgot to mention, you guys, I received the free credits that I requested from AWS, and I'll be sharing that with you individually. all of you will get a different activation code that you can put in your AWS account. So you can do some, because some of the things that we are going to do next week, the like the load balance and all, they are not in the free tier, so you will incur some expense, but you can use that credit towards that, so you won't go out of the free tier. So that's all for this week. Thanks everyone for joining. See you next week.